I spent 3 years waiting. 3 years waking up alone in our king-sized bed in our Upper West Side apartment. 3 years eating dinner by myself at the kitchen island Lucas and I picked out together at that overpriced furniture store in Soho. 3 years sleeping on one side of the mattress like the other half was sacred ground. And today, November 14, 2023, my husband was finally coming home. I'd been up since 5 a.m. I deep cleaned the apartment until my knees ached. I went to Fairway Market and bought his favorite cut of short ribs. I slow cooked them for 6 hours with red wine and rosemary the way his mother taught me when we were just dating. I wore the emerald green dress he bought me for our 10th anniversary, the one he said made my eyes look like morning light through stained glass. God, I even put on makeup. Full makeup. At 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. The buzzer rang at 4:47 p.m. My heart stopped. Then it started racing so fast I thought I might pass out right there in the hallway. I smoothed down my dress one more time, checked my lipstick in the mirror by the door, and took a breath that felt like it could fill an entire subway car. I opened the door with a smile I'd been rehearsing for 3 years. Lucas E. The words died in my throat, because standing in my doorway wasn't just my husband. Lucas was there, yes, tan leaner than I remembered, wearing a jacket I'd never seen before. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking down at the woman standing beside him, a young woman, maybe late 20s, with long dark hair and eyes swollen from crying. She was beautiful in that fragile porcelain doll kind of way, the kind of beautiful that makes you feel like a piece of old furniture. And in her arms, was a little boy, maybe 2 years old.
Asleep, his head tucked against her shoulder, his tiny fist clutching a stuffed elephant. The child had Lucas's eyes.
Exactly. Those same almond-shaped hazel eyes that I used to trace with my fingertips on Sunday mornings. Time didn't just stop. It shattered. Rochelle, Lucas said. Not honey. Not I missed you. Just my name. Flat. Like I was his accountant. This is Elena.
The woman Elena looked at me with eyes that were apologetic and terrified all at once. Her lips trembled.
I'm so sorry, she whispered. But she held that child tighter, like I might try to take him. Lucas stepped past me, into my home. Our home. He walked right through my doorway like I wasn't even standing there, pulling a suitcase behind him. Her suitcase, I realized, because his was navy blue, and this one was cream-colored with a floral pattern. Elena followed, murmuring something in Spanish to the sleeping boy. I stood frozen in the doorway of my own apartment, still holding the door open, the smell of short ribs and red wine wafting out into the hallway where Mrs. Chen from 4B was definitely going to smell it and ask questions tomorrow. Lucas turned around in my living room, the living room where we'd hosted Thanksgiving, where we'd watched the ball drop on New Year's Eve, where I'd cried on his shoulder when my father died, and he looked at me with something that wasn't quite pity but wasn't quite guilt either. Rochelle, he said again. This is Mateo. My son, not our. They're moving in.
The bowl slipped from my hands before I even realized I was still holding it.
The ceramic shattered against the hardwood floor with a sound like a gunshot. Short ribs and red wine exploded across the entryway, across the white rug Lucas's mother gave us as a wedding present, the one I'd had professionally cleaned twice a year for 13 years. Elena flinched. The little boy Mateo woke up and started to cry, and Lucas just stood there looking at the mess on the floor and sighed like I'd inconvenienced him. I'll order takeout, he said. Then he walked toward the bedroom, our bedroom, with his phone in his hand and his new family behind him. And I stood there in the doorway surrounded by shattered ceramic and the ruins of a meal I'd spent all day making, watching my husband of 15 years walk away from me in my own home. That's when I heard it. a small voice so quiet I almost missed it over the sound of Matteo crying. Elena, standing in my living room with my husband's child in her arms, looking at the emerald green dress I'd worn just for him, whispered he told me you were dead. The door clicked shut behind me, and something inside my chest, something that had been holding on for 3 years, waiting and hoping and believing, finally snapped clean in half. The smell of his cologne hit me first. Not the cologne he was wearing now, some new brand I didn't recognize, but the memory of it. Burberry Brit.
The bottle I'd bought him at Macy's the Christmas before he left.
He'd worn it every single day. That scent used to mean safety. Home. The weight of his arm around my shoulders on the subway.
Sunday mornings when he'd make terrible pancakes and I'd pretend they were good.
Now, it just meant before. Before he left for that temporary construction contract in Dubai. 18 months tops, he'd promised holding my face in the doorway of this same apartment. We need the money, Ro. Think about it. I'll make 3 times my salary. We can finally start trying for a baby when I get back. 18 months turned into 24. Then 30. Then 36. I didn't just wait. I held the world together while he was gone. I paid our rent, $3,200 a month alone. Every single month. I picked up weekend shifts at the hospital where I worked as a medical transcriptionist. I started tutoring high school kids in the evenings, fitting sessions in between loads of laundry and phone calls that never came. When our dishwasher flooded the kitchen at 2 a.m., I was the one on my hands and knees with towels watching YouTube videos on how to fix a broken valve. When the landlord threatened to raise our rent by $400, I negotiated. Alone. In my scrubs, straight from a 12-hour shift, with my hair still in a bun and my eyes burning from exhaustion. And Lucas's family, I carried them too. His mother, Rita, developed pneumonia that first winter. I was the one who drove her to Mount Sinai at midnight, sat in the ER for 6 hours, filled her prescriptions, brought her soup every day for 2 weeks. When she cried because Lucas didn't call, I lied. He's just busy, Rita. Time zones. You know how it is. His younger brother, Danny, relapsed. Painkillers again. I found him passed out in a McDonald's bathroom in Queens and drove him to a rehab facility in New Jersey. I visited him every Saturday for 3 months. I paid his first month's rent when he got out because Lucas couldn't access his account that week. I stopped buying new clothes. I wore the same 3 pairs of scrubs until the fabric went thin at the knees. I ate pasta 5 nights a week because it was cheap. I canceled my gym membership, my book club, my subscription to the Met. I kept every receipt, not because I wanted credit, but because I wanted to show him when he came home how much we'd sacrificed together. How strong we were. When you love someone, you don't keep score. But some people do, and they count your kindness as weakness. Lucas's calls became shorter. Once a week, then every 2 weeks, then just texts.
Swamped.
Miss you. Send photos. I sent him pictures of his mother's birthday cake of our bedroom at sunset of the Dili on the corner where we used to get bagels. I never got photos back. Time zones, I told myself. He's working 80-hour weeks. He's building our future. There was one night, February 2 years in, when I got the flu. Not the kind where you take Dayquil and push through. The kind where you wake up shaking, where your fever spikes to 103, where you can't even walk to the bathroom without holding the wall. I was alone. I called Lucas. It went to voicemail. I called his mother. She was visiting Danny upstate. I took an Uber to the ER by myself, waited 4 hours in a plastic chair, got an IV, got sent home with antibiotics and instructions to rest and hydrate. I sat in the back of that Uber going home. Shivering under my coat, watching the lights of Manhattan blur through the window, and I whispered it out loud, when Lucas comes home, it'll all be worth it. I believed that. God help me, I really believed it. If you've ever given everything to someone who later turned away your time, your money, your hope, your body's last reserves of strength, you understand this part.
You understand how easy it is to convince yourself that love is supposed to hurt a little.
That sacrifice proves devotion. That if you just hold on long enough, the person you're waiting for will finally see you. Thank you to everyone who helps keep these stories alive. Every word you share, every act of kindness helps protect those who still believe in family. In loyalty. In doing the right thing even when no one's watching. I was still thinking about that night in the ER when Lucas walked past me into our bedroom. Still remembering how I'd whispered his name like a prayer. How I'd promised myself it would all be worth it. And now, he was here. Not alone. Not sorry. Just here. With a woman who looked at me like I was a ghost. And a child with his eyes. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. Lucas didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He just moved them in. Elena took the guest room, the one I'd painted sage green last spring, the one with the good light, and the bookshelf I'd built from an IKEA kit alone with instructions in Swedish I couldn't read. She unpacked, slowly, quietly, like she was afraid I'd scream. I didn't. I couldn't. My voice had disappeared somewhere between the shattered bowl and the sound of Mateo's tiny footsteps on my hardwood floors. Lucas slept in our bed that first night. Our bed. Like nothing had changed. I slept on the couch. In my own home. The next evening I was standing at the stove reheating leftover Chinese takeout because apparently I was still cooking for people who'd destroyed my life when I heard the key in the lock. Not Lucas's key. His mother's. Evelyn burst through the door like she owned the place, which in her mind she probably did. She was wearing her good coat, the black wool one with the fur collar, and carrying a bag from Zabar's. Rugalash. Lucas's favorite. She walked right past me. Didn't even look at me. She went straight to the guest room, knocked softly, and when Elena opened the door with Mateo on her hip, Evelyn's face lit up. "Oh, me, Joe," she cooed, reaching for the child. "Look at you. You look just like your father." She kissed Elena on both cheeks. Held her. Whispered something in Spanish I couldn't hear. And then, only then, she turned to me. "Rochelle," she said. Not a greeting. Just my name. Flat. I stood there in my kitchen holding a spatula, wearing the same leggings I'd slept in my hair, unwashed for 2 days. "Evelyn," I said. She set her purse down on the counter. My counter. Right next to the bills, I'd been organizing the electric bill, the internet bill, the rent I'd paid alone, for 34 consecutive months. "We need to talk," she said. Lucas appeared from the bedroom. He must have texted her, coordinated this. The three of them sat down at my dining table. Lucas, his mother, and Elena, who was bouncing Mateo gently on her knee. The boy was eating a piece of rugalash, getting crumbs everywhere. I stood. No one invited me to sit. Evelyn folded her hands like she was chairing a board meeting. "Rochelle," she said, her voice calm, reasonable, the way you'd talk to a child throwing a tantrum. "You need to be reasonable." Reasonable. "Men slip," she continued. "It happens, especially when they're alone, far from home. You should have kept him close. You should have—" "I couldn't follow him to Dubai," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "I had a job. We had rent. Your medical bills, Elena, is giving him what you couldn't," Evelyn said. The room went silent. I stared at her. At this woman whose prescriptions I'd filled, whose hand I'd held in the emergency room, whose son I'd loved for 15 years. "A child," Evelyn said simply. "A family. A future." Elena looked down. She had the decency to look uncomfortable. But she didn't speak. She just held Mateo tighter.
Lucas cleared his throat.
And then he did it. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a manila folder.
Slid it across the table.
It made a soft shish sound against the wood, the table I'd refinished 2 summers ago with sandpaper and stain. I bought at Home Depot, my hands blistered for a week afterward. "Divorce papers," he said. "Nah, I'm sorry. Not, we need to talk. Just divorce papers."
I looked down at the folder.
"Didn't touch it." "I've already signed," he added. Matter of fact. Like he was discussing a car lease. My ears started ringing. "You'll need to move out," he continued. "Soon. The apartment isn't really yours. The lease is in my name." The lease was in his name because he'd signed it 5 years ago when we moved in. I'd paid for it every month, alone, for 3 years, but the lease was in his name. Evelyn nodded like this was all very sensible. "We'll give you a few weeks," she said, "to find something affordable." Affordable. I'd kept her son's home. I'd kept his family alive.
I kept her alive.
And now I was being evicted. Lucas looked at me. Finally, really looked at me. And there was nothing there. No guilt. No sadness. No recognition of who I used to be to him. Just inconvenience. "Don't make this harder than it has to be, Ro," he said. "Ro?" He called me Ro. Like we were still close. I didn't cry. I didn't scream.
I didn't flip the table or throw the folder or slap him the way every cell in my body wanted to.
I just stood there, and something inside me, something that had been bending and bending for 3 years, finally snapped. Not broke.
Snapped.
There's a difference. If you've ever trusted someone so deeply that their betrayal made you question your own worth, you're not alone. Thank you to everyone who helps me tell these stories. Your support keeps this space alive for those who still believe that truth somehow will always find its way. I looked at Lucas, at his mother, at Elena, who wouldn't meet my eyes, and I smiled. Not a happy smile, a knowing one. "Okay," I said softly. Lucas blinked. "Okay, I'll sign," I said. I reached for the folder, and I started planning.
The apartment was never silent before.
There was always something, the hum of the radiator, the muffled bass from the couple upstairs, the distant wail of sirens on Amsterdam Avenue. New York doesn't sleep, and neither did our home. But that night, lying on the couch with a throw blanket that smelled like dust and old lavender, I learned what real silence sounds like. It sounds like breathing you're trying to keep quiet, like counting the seconds between car horns outside, like the electrical buzz of the refrigerator becoming the loudest thing in the world. I couldn't sleep. My body wouldn't let me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lucas sliding those papers across the table. Heard Evelyn's voice, "You should have kept him close." I stared at the ceiling, counted the cracks in the plaster. 7. There were 7 cracks branching out like veins from the overhead light fixture I'd installed myself 3 years ago when the old one shorted out and Lucas wasn't there to help. Around 2 a.m., Mateo started crying. Not loud. Just that soft, hiccuping wail that babies make when they wake up somewhere unfamiliar. I heard Elena's voice through the wall, gentle, soothing singing something in Spanish I couldn't understand. That room used to be our office. Then it was going to be a nursery. I'd painted sample squares on the wall, soft yellow, pale green, cloud blue. Lucas and I stood there one Sunday afternoon holding paint chips up to the light, arguing about which one felt more like hope. We never picked one. Now, there was a child in there. Just not mine. I pulled the blanket tighter and turned toward the back of the couch, pressing my face into the cushion so I wouldn't have to hear her lullaby. Around 3 a.m. I heard voices in the kitchen. Low, whispered. But in a silent apartment, whispers carry. Lucas and his mother. I didn't move. I kept my breathing, even my body still, like I was already asleep. Maybe I wanted them to think I was. Maybe I just didn't have the energy to face them again. She's taking this better than I expected, Evelyn said. The clink of a mug on the counter. She was making tea. In my kitchen. With my kettle. She's always been like this, Lucas said. Quiet. Agreeable. Agreeable. She won't fight back, Evelyn continued. Her voice had that satisfied edge to it. The tone she used when she got her way. She never does. Silence. Then Lucas, she'll be out by the end of the month. I lay there in the dark, eyes, open heart pounding so hard I thought they might hear it from the kitchen. She won't fight back. She never does. The next morning, I got up before anyone else. 5:30 a.m. I showered in the tiny bathroom by the front door, the guest bathroom, because I couldn't face walking past the bedroom where Lucas had slept. I got dressed in the dark, pulled on scrubs, tied my hair back. I didn't look in the mirror. At work, people noticed. "You okay, Rochelle?" my supervisor asked during our morning huddle. "Fine," I said. "You look tired." "I'm fine." I wasn't fine. I was disappearing. I sat at my desk, transcribing medical reports, patient histories, diagnoses, procedure notes. Words that meant life or death to someone somewhere. But they just felt like sounds, empty sounds. At lunch, I sat in my car in the parking garage and ate a granola bar I didn't taste. My phone buzzed. A text from Lucas: "Don't forget to pick up toilet paper on your way home." Not, "How are you?" Not, "We should talk." Just a chore. A reminder that I was still useful for something. I stared at the text until the screen went dark. That evening, I came home to find Elena folding laundry in the living room. My laundry.
She'd washed a load of towels and washcloths and was folding them neatly on the coffee table, Mateo playing with blocks at her feet.
She looked up when I walked in. "I hope this is okay," she said softly. "I wanted to help." I nodded, didn't speak. Walked to the kitchen. There was a casserole dish on the counter. Still warm. A note in Evelyn's handwriting for the family. The family. I wasn't part of it anymore. I was just the woman who used to live here. If you've ever sat in a room so quiet it started to echo your thoughts, you'll understand this silence. Thank you to those who help keep these stories alive. Your kindness helps give voice to people who've been forgotten, who sit alone in their pain, waiting to be seen again. That night, I didn't sleep on the couch. I sat in the chair by the window overlooking 82 N Street and watched the city move below me. Taxis, delivery trucks, people walking dogs, lives continuing like mine hadn't just ended. I thought about the divorce papers sitting in the manila folder on the kitchen counter. I thought about Evelyn's voice. She won't fight back. I thought about Lucas asleep in our bed with a woman who wasn't me, just down the hall. And I thought about something my father told me once years ago when I was young and thought silence was the same as weakness. Baby girl, he'd said the quietest people in the room are often the most dangerous because they're always listening, always learning, always 3 steps ahead. I looked at my reflection in the window, pale, exhausted, erased, but still there. People think silence means surrender. They don't realize silence can be strategy. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and opened my laptop. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, a stack of file folders, and 3 years' worth of bank statements I'd been too tired or too trusting to look at closely before. The apartment was dark except for the glow of the screen. Everyone else was asleep. Lucas in our bed. Elena and Matteo in the room that should have been ours. Evelyn had finally gone home around 11, taking half the rugelach with her. I started with the easy stuff. The lease. Lucas said the apartment wasn't mine, that I'd have to leave. But when I pulled up the original lease agreement from 5 years ago, my name was on it. Not as a co-signer, as the primary leaseholder. We'd signed it together, but the lease was in my name because I had the better credit score back then. Lucas had maxed out 2 cards in his 20s, and it had taken him years to recover. I sat back, stared at the screen. He lied. Or he forgot. Or he wanted me to think I had no rights. I kept digging. The apartment itself, we didn't own it, we rented. But there was something else. A savings account I'd opened 8 years ago with money from my father's life insurance. $47, zero. I'd been saving it. For a house someday. For a baby. For us. I logged into the account. Balance $9,200. My hands went cold. I pulled up the transaction history. Withdrawals. Dozens of them. Starting 2 years ago. $2, zero here. $5, zero there. $12, zero in one lump sum last April. All authorized by Lucas. But I never signed anything.
I opened another folder.
Found a stack of papers I'd filed away months ago without reading something Lucas had asked me to sign for his overseas work contract. I thought it was tax paperwork. I'd signed it on a Tuesday night exhausted while watching Jeopardy and eating leftover pad thai. I read it now.
It was a power of attorney,
Giving Lucas full access to my accounts. My throat tightened. I kept going. Bank letter dated 3 weeks ago addressed to Lucas. Marked URGENT in red. I opened it. Outstanding loan balance $34, zero. Immediate payment required to avoid legal action. A loan I didn't know existed. Taken out in my name. I found the application buried in his email. He'd left his laptop open on the counter earlier, and I'd used it to check my own email when my phone died. I opened his inbox now. Scrolled. There. An email thread between Lucas and someone named Miguel Herrera. Elena's father. Subject line: project payment final transfer. I clicked. The emails went back 18 months. Detailed transfers. Money moving from Lucas's construction project in Dubai into an account owned by Herrera's shell company. Funds that were supposed to go to laborers to materials to permits rerouted. Skimmed. Laundered.
Lucas wasn't just cheating on me.
He was stealing. And then I found it. An email from Lucas to his mother. Sent 6 months ago. Once the divorce is finalized, we'll have access to Rochelle's assets. The apartment, the savings, the insurance payout. Elena's father will handle the transfer. She won't fight it. She never does. I read it twice. 3 times. The words didn't change. She won't fight it. She never does. I sat there in the dark, the laptop screen casting blue light across my face, and I understood. This wasn't a betrayal of passion. It wasn't love. It wasn't even lust. It was opportunity. Elena wasn't just his mistress. She was the key to a con, and I was the mark. If you've ever found truth in the quiet moments after pain, you know what this part feels like. Thank you to everyone who supports these stories. Your kindness keeps hope alive for people still finding their voice after betrayal. I closed the laptop, stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the city, The lights, the movement, the endless pulse of people who had no idea what was happening in apartment 6C on West 82 N Street. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled. A cold, clear, terrifying smile. Because now I knew. And knowledge I was learning is the sharpest weapon of all. There comes a point when silence stops meaning defeat. It becomes preparation. I sat at the kitchen table the next morning alone. Lucas had left early some meeting he didn't bother explaining. Elena was in the guest room with Mateo singing softly in Spanish. Evelyn hadn't arrived yet, but she would. She always did around 10 with her opinions and her pastries and her certainty that I would simply disappear. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on the street below. Sunlight came through the window in pale gold stripes falling across the stack of documents I'd printed at 4 a.m. Bank statements, emails, loan applications.
The power of attorney I'd signed without reading.
All of it organized, highlighted, dated. I picked up my phone, scrolled to a name I hadn't called in 2 years. Nora Castellano. We'd worked together at Mount Sinai before she left to become a forensic accountant, the kind of person insurance companies hire when they suspect fraud, when the numbers don't add up, and someone needs to find out why. She answered on the second ring. Rochelle, her voice was warm, surprised. It's been forever. How are you? I need help, I said. No small talk. No pretending. She paused. Then where do you want to meet? I met her at a small cafe on 79th in Columbus. The kind of place where nobody looks up from their laptops, where conversations disappear into the hiss of the espresso machine. I brought everything. The documents. The emails. The transaction histories. Nora spread them across the table like a detective laying out evidence. She didn't say much at first. Just read.
Her finger traced lines of numbers, pausing at dates, circling amounts in red pen.
After 20 minutes, she looked up. This is fraud, she said quietly. Identity theft. Unauthorized access. Possibly money laundering if this overseas account is what I think it is. Can you prove it? She smiled. Not a happy smile. A professional one. Give me a week. I left the cafe feeling lighter. Not happy. Not relieved. Just clearer. Like I'd been walking through fog for 3 years and someone had just handed me a flashlight. Over the next 5 days, I moved in silence. I went to the bank, closed the joint account Lucas had access to, opened a new one in my name, only at a different branch, transferring what little was left of my inheritance, $9,200 into it before he could drain it further. I changed the locks on the apartment, called a locksmith at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday while Lucas was out and Elena had taken Mateo to the park. The locksmith, a man in his 60s with kind eyes, didn't ask questions. Just installed new deadbolts, handed me 3 keys and left. I gave 1 key to the building super. Kept the other 2. I retrieved the home security footage from the camera I'd installed 6 months ago, a small one by the front door meant to catch package thieves. I'd forgotten it was there, but it had been recording. I watched 3 months of footage in fast forward. Evelyn letting herself in when I wasn't home, going through the mail, opening drawers, photographing documents. Lucas and Elena laughing in the living room while I was at work. Evelyn and Lucas sitting at the same kitchen table looking at papers I couldn't see. I saved it all to a flash drive. I moved my mother's jewelry, the pieces I'd inherited, the ones worth something, into a safe deposit box at Chase on 86th Street. The pearls, the gold bracelet.
The engagement ring my father gave her in 1981.
Things I couldn't let them take. I found a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a woman named Diane Friedman who specialized in financial abuse cases. Her website said when family becomes predator. I called her office. made an appointment for the following Monday. "What are we dealing with?" her assistant asked. "Fraud," I said. "Identity theft. Coercion. She'll want to see documentation." "I have it." Each action was small, quiet, deliberate.
Each one felt like pulling a knife out of my own back and cleaning the blade.
For years, I'd mistaken generosity for love. Now I was learning the quiet math of self-respect. Lucas started to notice something was wrong on day 4. He tried to transfer money from the joint account. It was closed. He tried to use his key. The lock had been changed. He called me at work 6 times. I didn't answer. That night when I came home, he was waiting in the hallway. "What the hell, Rochelle?" His voice was tight, angry. "You locked me out of my own apartment." I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd loved for 15 years. This man I'd sacrificed for, waited for, believed in, and I felt nothing. "The lease is in my name," I said calmly. "I checked." His face went pale. I walked past him, unlocked the door with my new key, and stepped inside. He followed, sputtering. I said, and I did. Elena appeared in the hallway, holding Matteo. Her eyes were wide, frightened.
Lucas's phone buzzed.
He looked down at it, then at me. "We need to talk," he said. "No," I said. "We don't." I closed the bedroom door, and for the first time in 3 years I locked it. It's funny how silence can sound like thunder when guilt starts to echo. The next morning I received an email from Nora. Subject line: "Found something. Call me." I smiled. The storm was coming. And this time, I was the one holding the lightning. The mediation meeting was Lucas's idea. He scheduled it for 2 p.m. on a Friday at a conference room in a legal services building on Lexington Avenue. "Neutral ground," he said. "Somewhere we could talk like adults." He wanted me to beg. I could tell by the way he texted me the address. No explanation, no question, just an expectation that I'd show up.
Like I always did.
Like I always had. I arrived 10 minutes early. The conference room was small, sterile. Gray carpet, white walls, a long table with 8 chairs. Fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired. Lucas sat at the head of the table like he was chairing a board meeting. Evelyn sat to his right, her purse in her lap, her face set in that expression she wore when she thought she was being reasonable. Elena sat across from them, Matteo asleep in a stroller beside her. She looked nervous. Good. Lucas's attorney, a man in his 40s with slicked back hair and a suit that cost more than my monthly rent, sat next to him flipping through papers. They all looked up when I walked in. I didn't smile. I didn't apologize for being late, even though I wasn't. I just walked to the opposite end of the table, set down my bag, and pulled out a single manila folder. Lucas cleared his throat. "Rochelle, thanks for coming. I know this has been difficult. Like I'd had a bad day at work. We're here," he continued, glancing at his attorney to finalize the terms of the separation. "We want this to be fair. Amicable." "Amicable." Evelyn nodded. "We're willing to give you time to find a new place. Maybe 2 months, 3 if you need it." Elena looked down at her hands.
Lucas's attorney slid a document across the table.
"This is a proposed settlement. If you sign today, we can expedite the process. No need to drag this out." I looked at the document, didn't touch it. Then I opened my folder. "Before we talk about settlements," I said, my voice steady, calm, "I need to clarify something." Lucas frowned. "Rochelle, you're all trespassing," I said. "In my apartment." Silence. Evelyn blinked. I pulled out the first document.
Slid it across the table.
This is the deed to the apartment, I said. Purchased 8 years ago with inheritance money from my father. The title is in my name. Sole owner. Not joint. Just me. Lucas's attorney picked it up. Read it. His expression didn't change, but I saw his jaw tighten. Lucas stared. That's not. It is, I said. I pulled out the second document. Bank statements. Highlighted in yellow. These are unauthorized withdrawals from my savings account. $37,800 over the last 2 years. All made using a power of attorney I signed under false pretenses. I looked at Lucas. You told me it was for tax paperwork. His face went pale. I wasn't done. Third document. Printed emails. These are communications between you and Miguel Herrera Elena's father, detailing the transfer of funds from your construction project in Dubai into offshore accounts. I slid them toward his attorney. Embezzlement. Fraud. Money laundering.
Elena's breath hitched. She looked at Lucas.
You said it was legal. Shut up, Lucas hissed. Evelyn's hand flew to her chest. Rochelle, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said. My voice was ice. You've been planning this for months. Maybe longer. You wanted my apartment, my savings, my insurance payout. You thought I'd just let you have it. I pulled out the fourth document. This is a police report. Filed yesterday. Identity theft. Financial fraud. The district attorney's office is reviewing the case. Lucas shot to his feet. You can't. I already did. Fifth document. Eviction notices. These were filed this morning. You have 30 days to vacate my property. All of you. Evelyn made a sound, half gasp, half sob. Her face went white. She gripped the edge of the table, swaying. Mom Lucas reached for her. She slumped forward, not unconscious. Just broken. Elena was crying now, clutching Mateo, whispering something in Spanish I couldn't hear. Lucas's attorney closed his folder. My client will need time to your client, I said, standing committed fraud. He stole from me. He lied to me. And he tried to take everything I had left. I looked at Lucas. This man I'd loved. This man I'd waited for. You didn't just betray a wife, I said quietly. You robbed the wrong woman. I picked up my folder, walked to the door.
Lucas's voice cracked behind me.